And we're back with the next panel, in which we are going to talk more about the digital economy with our guests, digital business, because both our guests represent this type of companies. We'll be asking them about what the pandemics did to their business, which we'll see how interesting these stories are. I'd like to welcome Dušan Švalek, Director of Slovakia of Slovak Telekom, and Michal Weis, Founder and CEO IBL Software Engineering. Gentlemen, welcome. So let's start with the question, how much COVID-19 changed your operation in business? Mr. Švalek. We can say that the time of lockdown from mid-March to late May, where we had to change our operation into the emergency regime, that was quite surprising. It was a new thing. But a number of things that have been here with us since the lockdown will probably stay. And I'm not talking about the second wave that is coming, or we are in it now. Perhaps a number of customers do not even realize the need for digital services and the connectivity and the quality of digital networks. This is perhaps the biggest takeaway. Now they realize, of course, they didn't realize in the past. Second thing we are finding out is the ability to change and this adjustment to trends. We didn't expect that people could so quickly adjust to digital, working place, home office, remote work, and digital education. Something which we didn't expect to be so quick, and it seems to be that it's going to remain with us here for good. And the third thing, exactly this era, this crisis, transformations give us the possibility to think about where to move your business, where to move your service development, how the customer needs are changing and transforming. And it's a threat, but also an opportunity, and depends on the companies what they choose. We're certainly going to talk about this in detail. Mr. Weis, how you were influenced by COVID. Perhaps you could tell us roughly what your business, what your company is doing, because not all listeners or audience know this. Well, basically we're a software company, we're Slovak software companies that is providing, is developing software. So meteorological providers are customers are SMHU, so National Meteorological Services, but we also provide softwares to many other meteorology providers around the world, but also armies like US Air Force and also airlines. And in this segment of customers in airlines, the impact was immediate, since, as we all know, that the air transport basically stopped from one week to another. There's a great deal of nervousness of providers of airlines or airline operators, but also providers of airline systems and related businesses. I mean, the impact will perhaps be longer term. So did you lose some customers because of this? Well, I can't say we lost customers, but a certain large American airline, I will not mention the name, we were preparing a project with them. They said, like, okay, at the moment all the investments are halted, our aircraft is on the ground, we generate net loss, so there was no continued business. The only thing they're going to finance are these essential projects for their survival. So this project has been stopped, but so I don't think where we would lose customers. Perhaps when the crisis hits them so hard that they will go bankrupt, then yes. But all of these investments in IT systems companies will have to continue as soon as they start operating. They will have to also renew our projects. So you have large customers, including armies. Perhaps the armies will survive. Yes, armies will for sure. When it comes to our business, I mean, there's a certain segment of companies like video conferencing, like Zoom, or gaming industry. They are, of course, experiencing an unprecedented boom because people are at home, everything's happening online. The demand for these services are much larger. This is not our case exactly, but we can't complain. We don't have any serious problem. We can't complain. And you know, when lockdown came, you know, we are a software company, so home office wasn't a big problem. Everything is digitalized, so it's not an issue for us. We're not a manufacturing company, even though our operation wasn't set up like that, but it was not an essential problem. Yes, it's an idea. There's an overall, general sort of impression that IT companies and communication providers, telecom providers, don't have problems with switching to home office. You're a smaller company, and I believe that your people are used to working from home anyway. Slovak Telekom is a large company. Let's take a look behind the scene. Was it easy to send hundreds and hundreds of people at home from one day to another? Yeah, it wasn't simple at all. But in the end, it ended like as if it was simple, if you know what I mean. It didn't turn out to be a big deal, but we were surprised. We were surprised by the adaptability and agility that we witnessed. It was very quick. You know, in 2 weeks only, we switched our call center operation and our retail sales operations, all the shops in Slovakia. We switched them into a remote base. So call centers, operators were working from home, from their flats and houses and rooms. And if you had told me this before March 2020, I would tell you it's not possible. But it turned out to be possible. So the ability of our employees to adapt, to organize, and to follow the goal and deal with the issue and adapt to the new normal. That was huge. That impressed me. Of course, this concerns the technical background, the instruments, the tools, connectivity, equipment, and software, video conferencing, and the hardware that's related to it. But what was much more difficult was to get used to this new corporate culture, so that you don't see the people physically. It's very different from meeting someone in person. It was difficult for you as manager? Yeah, it was very difficult also for me as manager. And paradoxically, I believe that everybody agrees that, I personally, I worked much more than under normal conditions. Of course, it was also because of the stress, and because I needed to there was a lot of improvisation necessary. But also the ability to work across the screen and to read the body language, the tone of voice, it's difficult. Despite the fact that you have a video, of course. So it is limited to a certain degree. So adapt to these new conditions, to implement new ways how to create things, how to participate in discussions. I mean, who's supposed to be talking, who's not supposed to be walking, how to take the decision after all. I mean, that was not easy, but it got us ahead. It's certainly a new form of management. How was this in your company? Well, for people who are not used to be working like that, even though there's a lot of freelancers in IT, but it's quite a difficult. It was relatively difficult, at least from the start, On the one hand, people are motivated, there's certain adrenaline, like something's going on, and the stress was much larger. On the other hand, the communication culture had to be rediscovered, which is not easy. I mean, when you're talking with someone face to face, you can read the body language, you can sort of evaluate the situation, But if it's through a teleconferencing, and there's many people, not just one, then so many of them have their cameras switched off, or the picture is so small that you can't really read the person. So from the manager's perspective, this is a barrier that you need to learn to overcome. It's also because you believe that when the first wave of adrenaline passes, when people are kick-started, they become into a mode which is too quiescent, this is too calm. Complacency? Yes, there is a certain degree of complacency, like this is how it is, and people will find the things that they like about it. So this calm complacency certainly is omnipresent, and people are not nervous about it. But we need to start learning how to work with this new setup, new normal, and this is related with anxiety of some people. You know, it's often influences many other work-related areas, but also personal areas and personal psychology. You need to learn to read people. Yeah, and you have kids around you and your partner, and you are actually working, right? Yeah, exactly. There's an interesting question on Slido. You're attracting people? You are luring people back to the office, or did people ask themselves to return to the office? My brother works in a foreign data company who are under American owner. They started to lure back, to attract people back to the company, to the office, by giving them some sweets and sanitation, etc., etc. Well, on our behalf, one part of people did ask us to come back, the other part didn't ask us, but we weren't asking them. I mean, they were clearly set up priorities and goals and objectives, like how many people needs to be in the building during the lockdown and after the lockdown. But we did not push them, just because the situation was, and is still quite unsure. And we thought it would be quite wise that people decide according to their own personal situation, their family situation, so that they feel safe. So far we didn't have to attract people or lure people back to the offices. During the lockdown, how many people were at home? I mean, percentage, I suppose a few people had to be working, and how many now? Well, everybody was working, obviously, but around 90% of them were from home office, 90% were working from home, and we had open stores because telecom services are regarded as critical infrastructure, and also during lockdown we had to maintain operation of services and servicing of the services of the things we provide, and our technicians who had to walk out, who had to be in field work because of the installations or servicing of the services. They were in 100% operation also during lockdown. And how many percent are working now? Well, now we are basically, well, everybody's working fully, but in the office you have around 30% of people in the office. The rest are working from home. And here in your company, did people come back? Some people didn't even leave, even though we told them, everybody, you should go home, but some of them said that they will stay in the office, maybe just a few percent. They said, I can't work from home, it's just not possible for me. So a few people actually remained in our office also during the lockdown. Again, we didn't push anyone to come back, we didn't motivate anyone. It was, we just said, you can come back during the summer. People who needed to socialize, they did return, but maybe one quarter is in the office, and it's falling again. So this year is going to be this is going to be the year of home office for sure. You think it's only this year, or something will prevail? Yeah, it will prevail. Something will prevail. What about telecom? I think home office as a concept will remain here forever. In our companies, we do not plan 100% return to the original status quo. We want to use home office much more, dramatically more than previously. But at the same time, we're thinking about how to change the culture and processes in the company so that we can use home office productively. Because one of the problems is that home office in old companies, in this old corporate culture, home office is quite difficult to implement, quite difficult to integrate. But we're convinced that new corporate culture, digitalized processes, can use home office much more, and home office will prevail here, even after the second wave of COVID-19 will be over. I want to ask you a question that is from Slido. It's about processing of large volume of data, big data in telecom, and in your prediction models, I know that you process a large volume of data. Can you do something like this from home? We start with telecom. Yes, of course you can. You can. And big data can be. I mean, basically, it's just a file. It's a file of sophisticated algorithms that are running regardless of whether the programmer is sitting. So, of course, you can do that. And I think that when this assisted servicing of a customer is limited, and the self-care or digital servicing is rising or is getting more relevant and important, especially in this period, big data, which is then transformed into some recommendation engine, this is exactly something that companies with large operations will certainly get ready to. Mr. Weis, big data and home office? Yes, of course. I mean, big data and home office, basically, they have nothing to do with home office. You know, big data is processed in data centers or cloud centers, so basically, it's not an issue. I mean, you can access big data from anywhere. Quite the other way around. Also, talking about our customer base and also about talking about employees, there's a greater pressure or requirement for switching to cloud. A number of subjects were postponing this, but now is the time. So they will maintain something in their own premises, but there can be a problem to be in the office because of lockdown and COVID, etc., etc. So they shift big chunk of their data to these cloud centers, and it's getting more attractive because people working from home. For people working from home, it's often easier to access cloud center than to go to the office. Because the office building has certain security limitations, etc., etc. Crisis is an opportunity. This is a buzzword. It's a phrase. But how would you react? What's your take on this crisis as an opportunity, Mr. Weis? Any opportunities from this crisis? Well, yes. This switch to cloud, which was accelerated for a number of organizations. So this is something which, in our business, is getting increasingly interesting. You know, crisis certainly changed behavior of people, and all sorts of business are basically, in all sorts of business you have people who decide. So certain optimization will have to take place across a number of segments. Talking about the remote access to system and remote data processing, there's a larger number of these requirements. But our segment in particular is much smaller in this respect. So things which we experience on a small scale, like video conferencing or telepresence, in large companies this is a huge opportunity, like for example telecom. I mean, I'm sure there are things that didn't do previously, but now the behavior of people has changed, and this leads to a number of new opportunities for sure. How the behavior of people has changed, apart from watching more Netflix? Well, I can't say that.
V tomto kontexte telekomunikačné služby boli tie služby, ktoré získali na relevantnosti.
I think telecom services gain much more relevance and importance, and maybe even demand for telecom services have increased. So from this perspective, people certainly need more connectivity, internet access, whether it's business or whether it's our residential customers. We see that during COVID-19, the data consumption increased 2 1.5 times during lockdown. I mean, now it's the post-lockdown period. It's maybe 20-30% more than previously. So we had to, we were happy to do this, to adjust the portfolio of our services to absorb much larger data consumption. Secondly, the type of connectivity.
Začínajú tam byť úplne iné potreby.
There are different needs. The needs are transformed. Before lockdown, the major important thing was the download speed, the downstream. Now, the symmetry is important. Not only what I download, but also what I upload. Upload is also very important because of video conferencing or because of the video education, where the stream must go both ways. So this is an important shift. Thirdly, stability of my connection. Now there are totally different requirements of our customers when it comes to stability. Before, quality of internet connection or internet access wasn't on the top of the list. Now, on the other hand, it's extremely important. Lockdown showed it easily. I mean, if you have a father, mother and 2 children simultaneously online video conferencing. Obviously, the stability of the connection is very important, and it remains important. And last but not least, security. There are new types of requirements appearing, and very quickly we see segmentation of needs. We see totally different needs, totally different requirements of business customers and residential customers, and I could go on and on and on, but let me stop here. I mean, lockdown and the related crisis changed consumer behavior. Talking about security, are there any new threats appearing, or are there more threats? I think it's not radically about the number of new threats. I rather think that the decision makers in business start to realize how important cybersecurity is. So something that was marginal before that, now they realize that they need to address this. Yes, exactly. I mean, it used to be a latent need. Now it's a very relevant need. I mean, the importance of self-care and remote work is much higher. You transfer huge volumes of very sensitive data, even from your home or to your home. So the need for security is much more relevant. A question for Slido. What should companies start digitalize as first, if you can answer in several points? Well, it's difficult to answer. There's not a silver bullet. I mean, companies are different. We are thinking about it in the following, according to the following priorities. First, what is the largest impact? What has the largest impact? Which process, or digitalization of which process will impact the largest number of customers? So, it's a volume criterion, for example. The second is where we can improve our service the most. Often, consistency of servicing in assisted channels is lower. People get various types of answers if they talk to person A or if they talk to person B. In self-care, it's all very consistent, and therefore the satisfaction of customers is better. So we select processes where we can improve customer experience the best. And thirdly, of course, is the cost criteria. Processes where you can save, or where you can perform the biggest saving, or where you can save the most. These are certainly very important. So these are the 3 major criteria for digitalization, and I believe that various companies would give various answers. One more question, also for you. Did pandemics influence the advance of 5G? No. The investment cycles in telco sector is above COVID. It's not a short-term thing. No, 5G has been prepared for several years. Networks have to get ready for it. Operators have to be. They've been getting ready for it for several years. So it's not a short-term thing. But naturally, it may happen that the specific date of launching 5G will be somehow influenced by the context, by the market. So yes, I mean, there's a certain degree of variability, but the investment cycle of telco sector didn't anticipate COVID, but it did anticipate 5G, of course. All right, 5G as a technology will probably result in transformation of how companies are operating, and how people are operating, or how people are living. If we put aside pandemics, because better times will come, but companies will continue in digitalization. So what will 5G change and digitalization change in the economy and how people will work? Well, 5G will certainly increase speed of operations, with things that are happening on paper or over the phone, and it will increase the comfort of the experience, whether the person who is executing the process or the customer. On the other hand, will be heavily influenced by security in digitalization. This is going to be an alpha and omega of everything, because in case of digitalized processes, or all processes, the shortfall or failure of a system equals a failure of a company as a whole, which would have fatal results, fatal consequences. So this is good news for asset and company. Well, perhaps. On our behalf, I think the whole go-to-market will change to a great degree. The whole servicing model, at least, it has the potential to change that. I can talk on our behalf. There are the opportunities, and of course I won't mention all of them, but if we look at the front line, front desk, what digitalization will bring, there will be a radical increase in digital self-care channels. And we already witnessed this today. There was a huge peak, in a huge increase in the number of self-care channels. So the retail network, whether it's telco sector, banking sector, a number of other companies, the retail network will be limited into more hybrid model. At the same time, the role of the front desk people will be changed again. Until now, I perhaps could be working at the front desk, servicing clients who are sort of walking customers. As we are digitalizing our processes, as we enable our colleague in off-peak can be sitting in the front desk, so he or she can be calling the customer. And we also use this during the lockdown, and the specialization changed to a more hybrid model. So sales and telephonic sales and physical sales, and often also assistance or consultancy via digital channels. You know, the roles are changing. Labor market is going to be changing. Now, for example, we had labor market for large call centers. We have them in large cities. So sometimes the labor market is saturated. We can't hire enough new agents. But now we are able to distribute. We can use agents from all across Slovakia and involve them into call center activity, call center servicing. So the labor market is going to change. The mobility, the physical mobility, of physical participation might not be local, might not be of key importance. And looking at decision-making processes or marketing processes, there's a huge opportunity for us to switch to something which is called advanced analytics. It's difficult to translate into Slovak, but advanced analytics is a very sophisticated analytical decision-making about which offer goes to which customer at the given moment. So working with big data that we've already mentioned, this is going to be far-reaching. the whole marketing concept, the concept of marketing teams will change. We already see the shift of advanced analytics and going through artificial intelligence and data-based decision-making. This all is going to change profoundly. And we've mentioned these physical spaces several times, premises. Something that's an immediate intuitive impact. A number of companies expect to need 30, maybe 50% of the physical premises compared to today for the actual operation. 30 to 50% less. But also corporate culture will have to change. The way of work, the way of interacting, the co-creation, so creation in a team will have to change. People profile who will be working in those companies, digital skills, digital creativity. This will all go through radical transformation. And I could go on and on, but I know we are running out of time. Yes, it's the last question. Very briefly, please, both of you, more personal. What this year teach you personally, Mr. Weis? March, April was a big lesson. That was a big lesson, and I've experienced what people don't really experience very often. I saw people mobilizing and doing great things when there's real pressure. So that's something that I really appreciate. Mr. Švalek? Two things. The ability to adapt is extremely among people. Sometimes we don't even realize that, just like you said. And secondly, is a reminder of need to be humble and need to be enjoying what you have at the given moment. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We are getting to the last section of today's event. We'll learn about the most respected CEO in Slovakia.
Volám sa Dano Dangl a som Forbes.
Volám sa Michal Pastier a som Forbes.
Som Forbes, pretože som rád, že úspech sa rodí aj na Slovensku.
Som Forbes, pretože som cieľavedomý.
Som Forbes, lebo za každé ráno zobudzám s hudbou a s ambíciou posúvať svoje hranice ďalej.
Aj vy môžete byť Forbes. Stačí, ak si vyberiete ročné predplatné z našej ponuky a získate magazín Forbes každý mesiac a navyše prístup do digitálneho archívu. Objednávajte na Forbes.sk. Forbes, váš návod na úspech.